Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your man Sean Zittel, joined with the legendary Radio Rahim again. I don't know where his whereabouts are. I don't know if he's overseas. I don't know if he's in Los Angeles. I was in Los Angeles yesterday, but where are you, Rahim? You don't have
I'm,
to
I'm
tag.
in London. I'm in London. This has been where I've been at as a home. I think over the past kind of year, this has been my default spot, which is the first time ever where my default spot was outside the States. But this is where big boxing is for me. And then Saudi, I've got to keep traveling back and forth. So I was like, let me let me get over here and really plant a flag here. The fans really love boxing here, and because they love boxing so much, they appreciate me. I appreciate that. So I got to make a way for you, Sean, and the family. If you ever want to live abroad, I gotta have it worked out so you can just buy one ticket and set up shop.
I gotta go to England and hear and get tore into for all my American biases by the hardcore international boxing fans who tell me,
Yeah,
Sean, you're
it's
good
needed.
analyst, yeah, you're good analyst, yeah, but you're quite biased for the
Oh.
Americans, yeah. And
Yeah, all right. Yeah, you sound a little bit yardy. It's a
yeah,
little, I don't know. Yeah, you're gonna
lions in
have
the
to come
camp,
over and tighten that accent up.
lions in the camp. But yeah, yes,
Okay.
yeah. Well, you said
Another thing that's
yard. That's like
annoying,
yeah.
huh?
You said yard. You said yardy. So I went
Yardy.
Anthony Yardy. Yeah,
Oh my God. Oh God.
lions in the camp, bro.
Uh, well, I'll tell you one thing that you'll find frustrating is the American fights come on at like 3 in the morning here,
Hmm.
and it's really difficult to keep up with the PBC stuff and the fights that are going on in the States when you're on this clock. I respect the fans here because they really do commit to the sport. They get up at 3 a.m. Sometimes if it's a big fight, they even have like the pub will stay open so that these fights can be shown in the neighborhood and people will be out from 4 to 6 a.m. watching fights. So it's an adjustment for me, but it has also been a real shot in the arm for inspiration and dedication. I'm like, if they are this committed, then I have to deliver my end of the bargain, which is great content and coverage. And so, who better to talk to about that than Sean Zittel,
Yeah,
making his own flag, his own station out there in Las Vegas. I
that's
love it.
right. That's right. Repping the Niners coming off a loss because we're not front runners over here, Raheem. So yeah. Anyway.
I grew up on the Niners, dude. I'm from the Bay. And when I was coming up, the Raiders were the traders because they were in LA. So the Niners was the only squad in town. I don't really watch football anymore. I don't watch anything, man. I only have time for boxing now. I don't
Yeah.
even know what season it is.
Yeah, that's probably best. I think my best years as a analyst in boxing kind of came when I was just consumed with boxing. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a
I gotta
good
tighten up.
yeah, not
I gotta
tighten up.
tighten up.
Got to tighten up, bruv. But but let's get to the action, man. I didn't see this coming. Tim Tszyu getting knocked out in 3 rounds by Bahkram Murtazaliev, who didn't just have a good performance or a really good performance. He had a downright spectacular performance. And if you know, back in the days, if this was on HBO, they'd say a star-making performance. You could argue, but that's always hard to weigh which fighter can move the needle in that regard. Versus, some guys are really good, but aren't. But that's another discussion. But it kind of was a star-making performance, if not a truly eye-opening performance for Bahkram Murtazaliev. Um, Man, I'll start real quick with some analysis. First off, I watched his highlights for about an hour, watched some tape on him. I didn't know that his power would translate to this level, and he wasn't as sharp and as quick a puncher in some of these highlights as he was. And the one punch that really caught me off guard the most was the way he was able to shorten up his left hook and catch Zoo in between shots, who was loading up. And I thought, okay, this guy's kind of like a poor man Sergey Kovalev. He's tall for the weight class. He has power. And he throws combinations, but really his moneymaker are his straight line shots, his 1 and his 2. And the other shots, they're going to kind of come out to complement that in combination. But he's got to get you with this. He's got to get you with the right hand, kind of like Kovalev was. He's not a poor man, Sergey Kovalev. He's definitely better than that. And he has a tool that Kovalev never showed, a real left hook as a weapon. So I got more to unpack from that. But what are your kind of your opening thoughts?
Let me first confess that you have a better study of Tszyu and Bahkram than I have. I haven't watched all of their fights. I didn't break this fight down pre-fight expecting to have a necessary informed opinion. I was just like, all right, I have a sense of these guys. Let me see what's going to happen. But interestingly enough, because I only had a sense of these guys and hadn't had that pre-fight analysis breakdown that most of you bothered to do, I wasn't surprised by the way the fight went. And when I say the way the fight went, I don't mean the outcome. I was surprised at how dominated Tszyu was from bell to bell. What I wasn't surprised about was the nature of the fight. I thought the attitude that Tszyu came in with was like, I'm going to run through this guy. I'm coming straight forward to knock him out, and I'm able to take what he can dish out, and he's not going to be able to take what I'm bringing. I felt the other guy had that stoic kind of one-dimensional mentality from the gate. Like Tszyu was saying, this is all I need to do, and the other guy is like, Bahkram, this is all I can do. So this is what I'm going to do. And so when those two mindsets ran into each other, I was like, okay, well, this is why this fight is worth watching, because it's going to be whoever lands the first biggest shot is going to be the one to dominate the fight probably and get an early knockout. And it was one-sided, but entertaining. Like, I felt like at any point we could be watching a super classic where after 3 knockdowns, Tszyu gets off the canvas, maybe 2 knockdowns. After the 3rd knockdown, I was like, somebody might want to reach for that towel. But after the 2nd knockdown, I was like, it's still possible that he catches him with one of these banging rights or a left hook or something to change the fight, because they were so offensive-minded. I saw almost zero defense, and I didn't see any lack of commitment to that style of fight until the towel finally did come in. So yes, in that sense, sometimes fights are not competitive, but wildly entertaining. And that had me on the edge of my seat up until after the 3rd knockdown. And that was something I did want to make a point of. Like, yes, it's entertaining. Yes, I appreciate that in the corners, you got to be thinking one punch might change this thing all the way around. They both have a hell of a shot. But at the same time, I think that towel could have come in a little earlier. I think he went and took 1 too many knockdowns, 1 more than he should have taken.
Well, Murtazaliev was overcoming some home cooking there. They were trying to give the A-side fighter, yes, this was a PBC fight, but this was also a no-limit promotions fight. And a no-limit promotions fighter, Mateo Tapia, on the opening card against Saavedra, got dropped 3 times and still got out of there with a draw. And in the case of the main event with Tim Tszyu, they were the doctor was taking a very awfully long time to take a look at him, and you could certainly think that they were giving Tim Tszyu every opportunity he could to recover, and and allowing him and giving him a shot in the 3rd and 4th knockdowns beyond reasonable doubt that he's actually going to come back at this point and change the fight around. That was home cooking. We're gonna let him get up from the 3rd and 4th knockdown. We're gonna have the doctor look at him. There was already a robbery kind of in the first fight. Yeah, and Murtazaliev overcame that too. And I say that with no shade to Tim Tszyu. This is boxing. The A-side guy with the promotion is gonna get those kind of breaks plenty of times. It's not the first or last.
I thought exactly the moment that the doctor was taking a look at Tszyu, I felt the same way you did. That's home cooking, but I thought that was going to be his side door out. Okay, the ref isn't stopping it. Tszyu's not staying down. The corner doesn't want to throw in the towel. Let's bring the doctor in and let everybody have some sense of, well, maybe he could have finished the fight if that doctor hadn't have stopped it. I thought that was the play. You know what I mean? When the doctor was like, okay, you're good. I'm like, oh no. What are they doing? This is, again, and listen, I'm a guy who wants to have a definitive end. I'm not protecting these fighters as if they're amateurs. If a world champion title's on the line, these guys are signed up for the sport. Yes, keep fighting till you can't fight. But at the same time, don't fight so long that we all know you shouldn't be fighting. And I don't see the opportunity for you to turn it around anymore. Like that, I don't think after that third knockdown, anybody thought for a second that even if Tim Tszyu landed his best shot at that point, that this fight was either going to go the distance or he was going to be able to stop Bahkram. Like at that point, we were just waiting. We were just waiting for like that highlight punch.
Well, when you
That's
get hurt,
not good.
when you get hurt to a certain degree, there comes a point in the fight where the legs are gone past the point of no return. And like the
Right.
Devin Haney fight we were at in Brooklyn in April, maybe after the first knockdown, maybe. But really, his legs, even from the opening left hook in the first bell against Garcia, he recovered from that. And then after maybe that first knockdown, maybe he could recover from that. By the time we got to the second knockdown, the legs are at the point of no return. They can't generate enough steam and leverage because the legs aren't there to let go of a fight-changing punch. So after the first knockdown, maybe the second knockdown, Tszyu was still winging. I would say after that first knockdown, he was still winging bombs to where maybe he could land a dramatic shot here while Murtazaliev's trying to finish him off. And we've seen that happen. But by knockdowns 2, 3, and 4, he doesn't have the legs to deliver that kind of fight-changing punch at that point.
I give him till after knockdown 3 because after 2, I was like, okay, he's either going to get knocked down and stay down or he is going to survive. The other thing is like, I thought that even with the come forward style that he had committed to, although it wasn't necessary, he decided that's what he was going to do, that would be savvy enough to survive. If he were wobbly on his legs, I don't think Bahkram is hard to grab. I don't think that if he had been in the mindset of, all right, let me clear my head, let me take a couple rounds if that's what it requires to get my wits back about me, get my feet under me, that he would have not been able to do that. I think if that had been in Tszyu's mind, that he could have survived those rounds and possibly got his wits back about him and, we had a longer fight. I was surprised that he just went right back to like winging shots.
Well, I'm gonna use an old school Radio Rahim turn of phrase that you told me years ago. I don't know if he has those cards in his deck. I don't know. He's never been that guy to tie you up, turn you, tie you. Floyd Mayweather, Shakur Stevenson, someone like that, no problem. I've been taught that since I was a puppy. I know how to get through a moment like that. A come forward destroyer who's recently taken the moniker of the soul taker. He didn't plan too much on tying up and surviving. He was seek and destroy.
That's where the professional experience is supposed to come into play. That's where all the other shit goes out the window, just like your legs. And you gotta, pull a different card, make an adjustment. I don't know what the corner was saying, but that should have been it. Should have been like, wait, we gotta survive a couple of rounds and figure something else out. The idea that you're just going to land that one money punch and turn it all around, I think was a diminishing return, a fleeting notion. And even if he did land a big shot, if you just keep winging, you're open to receiving the big shot in return. Like I didn't see any, and not that this guy isn't smart, but at the moment I didn't see any ring intelligence. I was like, what? This isn't making any sense. Like you have too much experience to be making this mistake. If anything, Bahkram was the one who should have, pedigree-wise, I would have thought, if he were in that position, I'd have been less surprised that he would not have thought of that. But I don't know. Maybe it was a pride thing, too. Maybe it was just like, I just need one punch. It's like the gambler who just wants to play one more hand and stop. And you don't start playing conservative. Just play gamble big and keep going. That might be the explanation.
Yeah, Costa Tszyu might be like, I told you not to fight those Russians. Told you. You know, some no, but no, but
I mean, yeah, yeah. There might be something to that. Different cultures they have a time. It doesn't make a whole bunch of sense. It shouldn't be connected. But I do feel like we've been covering boxing enough to know that like sometimes it's just Mexican time. Sometimes it's ghetto time. Sometimes it's Russian time. And it's just like these fighters all kind of feed off each other. Not to be too far out there, but I did see something on
oversimplified,
Instagram
but the
today.
momentum's obvious at this point for this part of the
Yeah,
world in the sport. The momentum's obvious. Yeah, I
there
can't
might
deny.
be energy being
Yeah.
passed between certain people connected by culture, like they're feeling it. Uh,
Well,
Russian is a difficult win right now.
it is. And I want to touch on that in a second, but before we do, I originally, you gotta acknowledge your biases. You gotta be like, okay, I picked Zoo, and Bahkram Murtazaliev winds up producing all these different things you didn't foresee. And so then you almost sometimes your brain will look for a reason. And I was like, the Fundora fight, not that, Zoo would have won pre Fundora fight, because upon rewatching that fight a couple of times again, he ran into a buzzsaw. He ran into a very tough style, and Murtazaliev he has better feet than Tim Tszyu. He uses his jab better than Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu didn't with the jab. The few right hands that Tszyu landed early, he would land the jab and then follow it up with a power shot right away. So he had his jab, but it was a jab. Just it wasn't a range finding jab. It wasn't a let me cut distance with this jab. It was a jab, and I'm gonna take your head off with a power shot behind it. And Murtazaliev out jabbed him from the beginning, but at first, I think I was going to talk up more the PTSD of Tim Tszyu. He thought he had a non-existent cut, and oh no, am I cut again? And I saw a level of panic that strayed away from his usual methodical self. It feels like in the past, if he had gotten touched by the jab, touched by some shots by Murtazaliev, he would have stayed his usual patient, methodical self. But in this fight, it felt a little bit like the panic button. Oh no, I'm getting touched up again. I don't want to go down this dark road like I did in the Fundora fight. Let me get this get back right away. Let me start winging bombs to take the play away. A little bit of panic and desperation. I was going to play that up more until I rewatched it, and he just got put in the blender by a taller guy with better feet, a better jab, and who was a sharper puncher than I thought, fighting lower level opposition. He just ran into a buzzsaw, man. I don't know how much do you think the Fundora fight affected him, and would it have really had that much of an effect on the outcome?
Well, what you just said explains the question that I was asking. I think you're right on the money with that. That is a very studious observation. The guy is still fighting the last battle. He doesn't want to leave anything to chance. He's not looking to go the distance. He's worried about a cut that doesn't even exist because it might exist at any moment. He is looking to finish this fight on his own terms. And because the experience that he is still not over, and then in the post fight, now the way that you frame it, when I see his dejection, like nobody wants to lose, but the way he was dejected and confused that this could possibly be the reality that he's living in, I believe is because he never accepted the last reality that he was living in. And he didn't win that Fundora fight going away. And then this time he's actually facing and tasting defeat that's undeniable. He can't even wrap his mind around it. He can't grasp it. It's a part of the necessary delusion of being a warrior. I think he was so steeped in his belief that this is what his destiny is, that if it doesn't turn out that way, I mean, even a draw, much less a defeat, he can't conceive of it. And so he was trying to fight the last battle, which is an absolute death knell to the current battle if you haven't overcome the last one, and making decisions that didn't make sense for the fight he was in. It made sense for the fight he had already been out of. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, we'll never know how pre-Fundora Tszyu does, but Murtazaliev, to his credit, he showed styles can make fights, and he didn't have any issue with Tim Tszyu's style. I think that style would have been more patient and methodical and confident pre-Fundora, but I can't take credit away from this man. not in 4 knockdowns.
He fought Bahkram's fight, on purpose, and then insisted on continuing to fight it. So you damn sure can't take anything away from him. If anything, he won the mind game and the physical game.
Well, I want to ask you, because you touched on it earlier in the convo, that stoicism, that single track mindedness. And a lot of these guys from Eastern Europe that are having this success are religiously devout fighters. Some of them believe in Islam, like you were raised, my friend, out in the Bay Area with that religion. And some of them are Eastern Orthodox, kind of Christian guys. But regardless of the aisle they fall on, these are guys like Lomachenko and Usyk, Beterbiev and Bahkram Murtazaliev. These are very religiously devout fighters. And I feel like you can offer some insight on that. How is that affecting what we're seeing in the sport from these guys?
Without getting into doctrine of different religions,
right?
The mindset of the faithful is something that it unifies them all. And if we're going to be practical about it, it is exactly what it protests to be, an article of faith. And that's what you have to have in boxing. That article of faith must grow into a certainty of delusion if you're going to meet the best in the sport and overcome them, not to mention that internal battle you have to fight of doubt and fear and every bit of quit that you ever had in you, you have to overcome before you even climb through the ropes. So what a religious person, speaking generally now, of course, but I think a majority of religious people would attest to this being true, is that you have to completely dedicate yourself to an outcome that you can't prove is the case until you reach it. That's your heaven. That is your blessing. That is your whatever your doctrine speaks to you and says you should receive for your faithfulness, you should receive it. And that is why if you don't win, if you gave all that you had, if you believe with your entire heart and you came into the ring bringing everything with you that you could possibly bring to bear against your opponent and are unsuccessful, it can throw your entire mentality into a tailspin because your reality is based on a faith that this is what has to be the outcome if I'm faithful to the religion that I believe is telling me how to live and how to fight and how to win. The thing that was said by Beterbiev after the fight against Bivol, that was like, ugh. He said, God chose me tonight. Listen, that's a tough thing to hear if you're in the losing column on a night of that kind of controversy. Because no matter what Bivol says, and he was incredibly gracious. I thought his team putting together the protests and constantly from that moment on claiming that they got shorted is what they should be saying, especially if they truly believe it. But for the fighter's sake, I think he was very graceful about it, very sportsmanlike, took account of what he did and didn't do, and is ready to come back stronger. But internally, when you hear that as a faithful person, you almost just got to choke it down because part of what you believe is that this wouldn't happen if it weren't God's will. And when a Muslim says that, it's kind of hard to refute because the reality is the reality. This is the difference, I believe, between devout religious people and fighters who are, I want to say just fighters, but fighters who don't have some rock on which to rely in that moment when they may fail themselves. You can make the argument who's stronger. Somebody who has what some might consider an imaginary best friend who builds this rock that they believe gives them more power than they would have on their own. And that may or may not even be true. Or the guy who says there's nothing else out there for me. Everything that I have to get on my own. And anything that I don't get myself is never going to be given to me. And so everything that I want to accomplish, I must get on my own with no crutch, no rock, no faith, nothing. Just what I put in the ring. I don't know which guy is stronger.
Me. Right.
Me, right.
So
There's
Floyd
no, there's
Mayweather versus
two.
Muhammad Ali mentality kind of thing. Yeah.
You said it. You said it. Not
No,
me, but
both amazing, both led to greatness. So you can't argue with the results with either approach. But I think you're
yeah, I
making
mean,
a
ironically,
brilliant
one's
assessment of it all.
undefeated and
Huh?
made the most money, which some may consider, the ways of the world. And one, nobody really remembers how many times he lost. All they can remember is that he is the greatest. Does that mean the best? No, it means the most consequential, the one who had transcended the sport, the one who became the most well known for not just what he performed in the ring, but the man he was outside of the ring. I think that is a very, very interesting contrast. And it may be what you decide as an individual matters most to you. Do you want to be the greatest or do you want to call yourself TBE and have the most money? I don't know that I don't know that any other fighter has done better business than Floyd and has less outside the ring reverence. You don't think of Floyd outside the ring as somebody you would aspire to be guided by his principles or ethics or listen to what he has to say on any number of subjects.
I would push back there and say I think a majority of your young American talent is doing just that with the Floyd Mayweather gospel.
Yeah, okay, but that's because they want that outcome. They're like
Right.
being the greatest.
I want to win
cool
all my fights and make all the money. I get it. Yeah, I follow the logic. Yeah.
I'm not knocking either one. I am saying though that there's a choice being made, and to your point, most people, religious or not, ultimately most people will choose the worldly thing. That's what makes the greatest the great.
Fighting for free. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But what he does or doesn't do outside the ring and what he relies on in the ring that is, in his mind, beyond himself, greater than himself, that determines whether or not he is fighting for more than money or is fighting for money because that's enough for a prize fighter. I'm not making a moral judgment in either case, but I do think the motivation, your intent, has a lot to do with how you pursue your goal and what it means to you when that moment of truth comes. Like, is it there or is it not there?
It's a brilliant breakdown. I hope it doesn't go over people's heads, and I hope they're able to grasp whether I hope they're able to grasp the depth that you broke that all down with. I enjoyed that.